What up, party people? You don't know me, but my name is Amy. I live in Northwest Washington and I got the virus,
I got the virus.
COVID-19 or the coronavirus. And I found that when I wasn't feeling well, other people's stories were helpful to me. So I'm hoping this will be helpful. I've also found that not everyone's got the same symptoms or the same experience. So I feel like the more information that gets out, the easier it is to kind of navigate what you're going through yourself. So I do hope it's helpful. If it's not, well, just ignore it, I guess. I'm not a medical professional. I talked to my sister later. She's not a medical professional either. We're both just hoping that in some way, giving our side or our experience is beneficial. Might not be. If you do have medical concerns, contact your healthcare provider. If you're having a medical emergency, contact 911. And if you have questions about the virus or whatever, there's a lot of information at cdc.gov. So, anyway, I've had it. My symptoms started the 20th of March, but I probably got it on the 13th of March. And that's when I had contact with my sister. She needed to go to work, and all of the schools were closed. So she needed someone to watch her daughter, which I gladly did. And we think that it's during that time that is how I got it. So I didn't start feeling sick until the 20th. I didn't, like, I wasn't obviously sick, I just didn't feel well. I had, like, my body hurt. I felt tired, but it wasn't anything extraordinary. Took a bath, tried to, make myself feel better. It didn't work. Went to bed. Over the next couple of days, the symptoms got worse. Um, I'm I get sick. We all get sick. I don't usually get knocked out by being sick. It's very rare. Um, but this was taking me out. I was so tired. I was so, like, I couldn't go from room to room without taking a break. Even from the living room to the kitchen, which are both behind me, I would have to sit for like 5 or 10 minutes to rest up to do anything. Had a lot of confusion. Still kind of think I might have some confusion, and you'll see in the interview I keep getting dates mixed up. That was taped 3 days ago. But even simple things like cooking, I would get confused. I would forget to turn on the stove, and then I would sit on the floor, wait for the food to cook, think this is taking forever, get up, realize I hadn't turned on the stove, and then sit back down without turning the stove on because it never occurred to me, gotta turn the stove on, dummy. So there's that. I had a really bad headache. One day was just brutal. I couldn't see. Uh, After that, it was in half my head, and so anytime I moved, that half of the head just hurt, like it would just been like caved in or something. I've had really bad headaches before, and this was one of the worst. Probably not the worst because I've experienced migraines, but not fun. Let's see. I didn't have a fever. I had, well, so the thing that I heard was just everybody, like, that's the symptom, is a fever. And so when I started feeling sick, I kept checking my temperature, and it wasn't going up. It was staying pretty low, which is where I rest. And then on the 22nd, it went up to 99. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So waited a couple hours, took it again, it was back down. So I was like, oh, that was probably a fluke. Took it again the next day, it was at 99, and then there was no more fever after that, which is good for me, but at the time it didn't seem like I had the virus. I'm lucky that my sister happened to get sick at the same time because it helped me take it more serious. Generally, when I'm sick, like I said, I just push through. So, you know, it'll pass. And also because she was sick at the same time, with us not seeing each other for so long, or a week at that point, it kind of clued me in that it might be what I didn't want it to be. So in addition to what it could be, I have a history of pneumonia, a history of having lung infections, and usually when I have them, I don't know. I don't usually go to the doctor until I've had them for a while because I'm just like, it's not passing. That's how I don't take sickness very serious sometimes. Like I'll feel a little tired, a little more tired than normal. I expect it to pass. After a couple months, it doesn't pass. I'm like, okay, something's wrong. This was worse. I've never been sick like this. I was exhausted, constantly falling asleep. Everything hurt all of the time. I I feel better now. I'm still sick. I feel better now. I don't want to understate this. This was the worst I've ever felt. And it's it's kind of I mean it's scary. If you're not sick a lot, it's scary. And I assume if you're sick a lot and you're even more sick, that's probably scary too. I don't mean to say that it was more scary for me than anybody else, but just especially like knowing that it could be the worst. So I had already been self isolating, basically quarantined at that point. It didn't technically change my life in not leaving. But I waited a couple days, see if it would pass. My sister got tested and they said that she was negative. And we now think that's a false negative, and we talk about that in the interview, why we think that. And it's not just us saying it. Her healthcare professional, her health department, my health department, they all say it. But because she had the negative, I thought, well, then I don't have it. If she doesn't have it, I don't have it. So I wait a couple more days and I'm still sick. Like I'm not getting any better. There's no improvement. It's just sick. And so I'm really worried, and I got the history of, you know, lung problems. So even if it's not it, I might need treatment. And so I don't know what to do. And, I hate calling the doctor. I hate going to the doctor. But at this point, like, I kind of feel like I mean, I don't know what to do. So that's what I did. I called my doctor's office, and I said, look, I don't know what to do. I don't know if it's what it is. I don't know what I should be doing. Because if it is it, I don't want to go to urgent care or the doctor's office and give it to everybody. But if it's not it, I don't want to go to urgent care or the doctor's office and get it from anybody. So, you know, call the doctor. We do a telemed appointment, which was nice. And she says, yeah, it sounds like you have it. And so, because of my history, because of the symptoms, and specifically because I live very alone, like, I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. This is my life. But I could be dead on the floor for like days before anybody would know. So if to help me be aware, she also made it very clear that if my symptoms worsened, I needed to call an ambulance and not drive myself because obviously I would probably try to drive myself and drive off the road and who knows. So anyway, go get tested. This drive-through thing, they have signs everywhere. Don't open your windows until they tell you to. And go through that. They put a really long swab up your nose. And I had been told that it feels uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt. It did hurt. Not like the worst pain in the world, but it was not fun. And I wish that I had been prepared for it. Like, I think if I knew that there would be pain, I could have been like, okay, this is not going to be great, and then readied myself. Instead, I was like, oh, it's just going to be uncomfortable. I'm not sure if it's because I have small nasal passages. You can tell I'm a very nasal person. So that might have been the difference. But I do think it's nice to know that it's a possibility it could hurt. And even knowing that, though, if you need it, if you can get it, do it. Don't let that scare you. It's not that bad. You'll get through it. Just be prepared. So anyway, got tested, drove home, completely exhausted. It was a Friday. On Monday the 30th, I got called by my doctor's office and they said, yes, it's positive. You do have it. So once I found out I had it, I kind of got more worried because my doctor had warned me that there's two humps. There's the first hump where you start feeling sick, and then you start thinking you're gonna get better, and then the second hump hits, and that's what's been taking so many people out. And so we were kind of waiting to see if that second hump would come. Luckily, it does not seem to be the case. I have been on a steady incline. It's taking forever. But I haven't needed to get hospitalized or anything like that. So I'm very grateful. As for getting better, I started feeling sick on the March 20th. It's now April 10th, and I'm still sick. Yesterday, I thought I was feeling better, got up, took the dogs out like I do, took a shower, ate breakfast, and then had to take a nap because I was that exhausted. And the health department said that there are a lot of false starts to feeling better, like you'll feel like you're feeling better, and then it turns out you're wrong. But she told me not to get discouraged, so I'm trying not to. It's really hard though. I have not really been able to get anything done for weeks. It feels like I have all this free time, like I'm not doing anything, I'm just laying around, but I can't really do much other than lay around. And anytime I try, if I, you know, even taking pictures, drawing, trying to sew anything, it's so exhausting on my body. And so I usually have to take a nap if I do anything. I cut it out of the interview, but as soon as the interview started, my sister said, "Are you going to have to take a nap after this?" Because she knows she's had the same thing. It's amazing how exhausting anything can be. Showering, driving to get the test, I felt every muscle I was using to stay upright, to keep that car moving. And I didn't realize like driving is such a physical activity. Done it for like 20 years and I've never felt so tired from it before. And I've driven long distances. So anyway, I am feeling better. I'm not great yet. And I'm so impatient to get there. It takes, if you haven't been sick for a long time, and I've had, like, in my teens, long-term sickness, and if I forget the mental toll it takes. It is upsetting. You feel useless, you feel scared, you feel exhausted, just mentally exhausted. And it's hard to remember what it's like when you felt well. So I do hope you don't get it. It's not fun. I don't recommend it. Or if you do get it, that you happen to be one of those people who get it and like it's nothing. That would be amazing. I wish I had that. But it doesn't seem, I obviously didn't. So, whatever. It is what it is. I'll get better. I'm cranky. I have a headache today. My cough has been getting worse. It'll get better, but I'm just cranky. So, I interviewed my sister. She has a similar story in the symptoms. A couple things are different, but she has a much more interesting story from start to end. Because her daughter actually had pneumonia at the beginning of March. And so they had experience with emergency departments, healthcare professionals, stuff like that. And so in her story, she got to see kind of the changing of procedures as they were happening, basically, or just before things changed. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to see like how things were different then and how they're different now. We talk a lot about her daughter and her boyfriend, who were both sick. We are not alleging that either of them definitely had it. I think in her daughter's case, we're almost certain she didn't because she was also tested, but it's hard to say because false negatives. So I don't know. The point mostly for that is to explain her journey, explain her experience, but we're not diagnosing them at all. So the interview is a little choppy. This part is probably also going to be choppy. I'm still spacey. I can think, but I'm a little bit slower. And so in the interview, there's several times where I have to cut out things where like she finished talking to me, and I just sat there, not realizing I needed to respond until like a couple of seconds had passed, and then me trying to recover. Luckily, it's my sister. She didn't care. In addition to that, she and I have a tendency to go off topic sometimes. We're nerds. We make a lot of jokes about things that aren't relevant. At one point, we start talking about a leak that's under her sink, and it's not at all interesting. I mean, it might be enthralling for you, but it's off topic. So, this is like I said, there's a lot of cuts. It might come off a little weird. I also don't know what I'm doing. before I got sick, I had intended to make videos. That's why actually everything was set up for this. But I've never actually edited anything long form, usually nothing more than like 15 seconds. And so I had hoped to learn by now, but I was so sick I haven't been able to get anything done. So using the setup I had already had, decided to make a video about it to try to share it with people. But I'm not skilled, and I know that. I'm well aware of that. I feel bad. But if I waited to learn how to figure everything out, probably would be a couple months before it came out. So I just wanted to get it out. I hope it's helpful for people. I hope I hope it's not completely boring. I find myself and my sister far more entertaining than most people probably do. So you might be bored. You might not like it. You're probably not even gone this far in unless you know us personally, in which case, hi guys. But anyway, we're just trying to, I don't know, trying to be helpful in any way that we can. So without further ado, here's the interview with my sister, Sarah. Hope you enjoy it. I'm going to ask you some questions. The intent of this is to not be political, but you can have whatever opinion you want. I just might, just so you know, if it's something like, oh, fuck this guy or whatever, I might cut it out. I might use that for something later or whatever, but this is just basically to get information of what your symptoms were like and what your experience was like. Because I don't think there's some out there, but there's not a lot out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it might. What's that?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
Not dollars.
Anyway, and the reason why I don't want it to be political is I just wanted to make it as accessible to people as possible. Because it's kind of weird that a disease has gotten political.
Looks good to me.
Okay, so I would like to first let everyone know you and I live in Northwest Washington. That's where the outbreak started in the United States. For a while, we had the highest cases and the highest deaths, and then New York took that over. So what was your timeline?
Well, I actually didn't tell you this part before. I've been sick since January. So Alexander, my boyfriend, he got sick a couple days, maybe like a little bit after Evelyn got out of the hospital.
Okay. And so Evelyn had pneumonia.
With my daughter, yeah.
Yeah. And so you guys went to the ER.
Correct. They told us not to go because they were telling people with fevers not to go to the emergency room. Mm-hmm. And then her fever had been close to 104 and not really going down with medication for like 4 days. And then she wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking, she was really irritable. And I was just like, something in me, I was just like, I was so uncomfortable with that. And I'm really good at bringing down fevers. Like, every time she has a fever, I bring it down. Like, I give her the right medicine at the right time and the right food and get her to drink the right water. Special water, it's fine. And then, and even when Alex is sick, like, I got his fever to go down really quickly. Mm-hmm. Oh, Alex went to the doctor on the 11th. He just told me. Okay. And so this time I couldn't get her fever to drop. And so I'm like, this isn't right. Like, my mom senses are telling me, like, we need to go to the doctor. And so we took her to the ER, and they instantly had us put masks on when we got there. And they were waiting in there, and the lady was like, she probably has the flu. Like, she was irritated over there. We're like, we're telling people not to come to the ER who have fevers. She probably has a flu. Do you want to do a flu test anyway? And I was like, yeah, I would love a flu test. Mm-hmm. And the flu test came back negative. And while she's sleeping in the hospital bed, her oxygen levels drop to 84. Okay. And they should be above 90. Yeah. And she's a healthy 9-year-old with no history of lung condition, no asthma, nothing. She's never been hospitalized before, other than after, she was born. Right. So it's last time she was, like, in a hospital. And then, so they did a chest x-ray, and they said they didn't see anything, and then they said they had to take her to Children's to do more tests, and when they were transporting her, the children's transport team was like, oh yeah, you can see in her lungs, she has something in her lungs. We need to take her. And since it was a respiratory issue, we took an ambulance there, and her oxygen was so low that we couldn't drive her ourselves, that she had to be on oxygen. So we get to Children's Hospital. They had to take us in the back. Took us in this back door. Like, they didn't even know where to take us. They had to take us down this hallway. And then they were like, police like, don't come in here, don't come in here. And they had to, like, open this special room for us. And they, like, locked us in that special room and tested her for coronavirus.
Okay. And that came back negative, right?
It came back negative. They took a blood test. One, they gave her an IV. And she tested positive for human metapneumovirus.
Okay.
Which is a flu, but causes pneumonia in kids, usually under 5.
Okay, so that was March 6th, and then when did Alex start getting sick?
He got sick that weekend, like that. We weren't in school. Yeah, it was like he got sick that Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you think he possibly got it when you guys were at the ER?
That's my assumption. I sound really sassy. That's my assumption of, like, we hadn't been leaving the house. We were pretty like, Evelyn was sick. Like, we're like kind of homebodies anyway. And so I'm thinking, when we were in the ER, we had a doctor that was working with us who wasn't wearing a mask, and all the other staff was wearing masks and stuff. And this was at the start of the pandemic when, like, we're like suggested to wear a mask, but all the techs that came in had masks and they'd glove up before they came in. And then we had this doctor come in, and she's like, free hands, no mask, chit-chatting with us. And then it was, once the shift changed, the other doctor came in, fully guarded up, and was like, I think we need to take her to Children's. The other doctor was like, she's fine. Yeah, so March 6th would have been when they still were mostly focusing on travel. It's a little bit, like, a little bit after every time
that.
Every time we talked to a new person, they were like, are you sure you guys haven't been to China?
Right.
Yeah. When we were in Children's Hospital, they changed the criteria for testing while we were there.
While you were there? That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So that's how early this was.
Yeah, so, like, they had us go in the back because they weren't sure, and they had someone come in like a yellow paper gown and a mask, and then that person left, and then they said, we're actually the CDC they pushed this little button. They're like, the CDC just changed the criteria. We can't come in anymore unless we're fully suited up. So if you need anything, call us. We're only going to try and make one trip in there before we admit you guys. We're going to lock down your room. I was like, okay. Good thing Evelyn's too sick to be scared, because this is pretty wild.
Yeah. So then Alex gets sick, and Evelyn got tested. She didn't have the virus. So you guys probably thought that everything was fine.
We assumed that Alex got sick because Evelyn was sick.
Right.
And human metapneumovirus is like a flu-y kind of coldy thing that he had a sore throat. He had really similar symptoms to what she had.
Right.
She started Sunday night before she got sick. Sunday day, she was like, Mom, my throat hurts a little bit. And then by Sunday night, she had a fever and she was sick. And so that's how Alex, he's like, my throat hurts a little bit. I have this cough. Evelyn had pneumonia. Like, it all felt really similar. Right.
So then you started feeling sick. So if he was sick, he went to the doctor on the 11th, and he was sick before that, obviously.
Right. He was the doctor after he was, like, his sickest. He was like, my throat still hurts. I've never been this sick. Right. Because he was, like, down, like, sleeping nonstop. He's not a kind of guy to just lay around.
Right. That's
my job.
Okay, and what did his doctor say when he saw the doctor?
Yeah, we went to the doctor's office. They made us put masks. They made him put a mask on. They didn't make me put on a mask on until later. Okay. And then he went into a room and he had to talk to the doctor on the phone first before the doctor would come in the room. Oh, okay. And so the doctor said, have you traveled outside of China? No, we still haven't traveled outside of China. Do you know anyone who's been diagnosed with
I want to clarify. You keep saying traveled outside of China. Do you mean traveled to China?
Outside of the U.S. to China. Yes. Okay. My bad.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
And so then she came in the room, looked at his throat. It was really red and irritated. She said, it's like you have an upper respiratory virus. It seems like your nasal dripping is causing you to have a sore throat. take these allergy pills, take some nasal decongestant, and I'm just going to write you just go to the nearest pharmacy and just go grab and pick these up. And so we went to the pharmacy, we grabbed them, and then we're like, all right, then we went out to lunch.
I was just going to ask, actually. So they didn't mention anything about quarantine or isolation at that point?
No, even before she left the room, she took off her mask, and she was like, you guys are fine. Just take this medicine, and you'll be fine.
Okay.
And then she walked in the room.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like I said, it makes sense. This was all really early.
Yeah.
Just a few days after they just changed the protocol for Children's Hospital and stuff like that. So, I mean, it makes sense. Everything was coming from behind, basically. So,
yeah.
Okay. So you guys went to lunch.
Yeah. Oops. So we went to lunch. We licked a bunch of stuff. No, we went to lunch, and then we went to Top Pot Donuts.
Okay.
And then I think we just went home after that.
Okay.
Because he's still tired. He's so tired. Right. He's feeling better, but we're just so tired. So then we just kind of came home and just kind of bummed around, I think, the rest of the day.
Okay.
And then I went to work like normal on the 13th.
Okay. And that's when I had contact at your house with you because I watched Evelyn.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then that weekend after I picked her up from your house, I felt sick. The 14th is when I started to feel sick. The 14th and the 15th, I was like laying around in bed feeling sick. But then Monday I was really anxious about going to work, but I wasn't sure if it's like, am I still kind of feeling sick? Should I just take a bunch of ibuprofen? Like, I probably have what Evelyn and Alex had. They definitely don't have the coronavirus.
Right.
And then I worked for 3 days. Mm-hmm. And then I got really sick on Thursday. And then I had just worked on clients, and so I ended up getting tested.
So Thursday, was that St. Patrick's Day?
Thursday's the 8th. Thursday's the 19th.
19th, okay.
St. Patrick's Day was Tuesday.
Okay.
17th. My last day of work was the 18th. I just filed for unemployment, so I know the date really well. And then I got really sick the 19th.
Okay.
And then I got tested that Monday morning. So probably a week before you got your results, I got tested.
So the 23rd?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, yes.
Okay. So did you call your doctor? How did you get tested?
I emailed my doctor, and I was like, hey, like, I have all the symptoms for coronavirus. I'm really anxious that I was literally working on clients. I have a small massage room. I work at a chiropractic office, which was they're still allowed to work. Yesterday, they just kind of changed some of the criteria for massage therapists, and so only if it's like a medical emergency are you allowed to do massage.
Okay. But
it was for a really long time. It was primarily you can keep working just fine, and so.
Well, I mean, technically, that's a medical field.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. I bill insurance companies. I work with car crash victims. And so I was working on clients, and so I was like, I need to know for sure if I have to let my clients know that I had coronavirus.
Right.
So I emailed my doctor, and I was really anxious, and so then my doctor didn't get back to me because obviously they're swamped.
Right.
And so I called the next day after over 24 hours of not hearing back from my doctor. Mm-hmm. Understandably, I call I go to UW Medical Center, and so I called their hotline. And I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from my doctor. I'm pretty sure I have these symptoms. I need to tell my clients as soon as possible if I have it or not.
Right.
And they said, honestly, doctors are swamped right now. You should just call, they have like a hotline, or you can go to a virtual clinic. And so I called the hotline, and I was waiting on the phone for like 15 minutes, and they said I had another 15 minutes to wait. And so I called the virtual hotline, or the virtual clinic.
Yeah.
And I did a video chat with the doctor.
Okay.
Who told me it sounded like I have the symptoms for coronavirus. He's like, I can't prescribe lab testing for you. I'm actually a doctor in California.
Oh, wow.
But I'll write a note that says that your work, that you can't work because you have coronavirus symptoms, and I'll suggest that you get lab tests in a note. So I called back, and I'm like, hey, I just talked to a doctor. He's from California. he said I should get tested, but he can't require lab testing because he doesn't even work kind of for you guys. I guess they were just so swamped because Washington was hit first.
Yeah.
That they were using different doctors to kind of help them sort through it at the time. And so they're like, oh, actually, we're not really being hardcore about that. We just, once you have a doctor's suggestion, we can schedule you an appointment. Can you come in today at noon to get tested?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what day was that?
That was Monday the 23rd.
The 23rd. Okay, sorry. So what was your experience testing? So they said, come in at noon and we'll test you. So what happened?
They told us to come to the clinic. And we went to the Ballard one, and they wanted us to stay in our cars. And so when we got there was a sign that says, stay in your car. If you're here for COVID testing, stay in your car and call us and let us know to check in. And so I called them, and they said, okay, great, we're waiting on one other person. So just stay in your car, and we're going to send a doctor out, and he's going to test. He tests like 6 or so people at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, not at one time. There was a bunch of cars. I have a picture I can send you to. There's like people sitting in cars, and he'd be suited up. He'd go swab them inside their brains and out. And then he'd go to his nurse, give her the sample, sanitize his gloves, come to the next car window. And so when we pulled up, when we made our appointment, we had to tell them what our car looked like and our license plate number so they could verify it when they went to test.
Okay. And did the test hurt?
Oh, so bad.
Yeah.
And I remember when we went in there, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be awful," because I had a sinus headache on my left side right here.
Mm-hmm.
I had a sinus headache, and I was like, "This is gonna be the worst," because I know he has to stick it up really far. I saw them test Evelyn. I knew they were gonna test us that way, and so he stuck up this side. It hurt so bad. He's like, "It's just gonna be like for 15 seconds." It burned so bad, and it felt for like eternity because I was like, 15 seconds, I can handle this pain, and I was like, "Does this?" And it's like burning all in here so bad. And then this side actually didn't hurt at all in comparison. But yeah, it was, and the doctor was like, it hurts. I'm so sorry. And like, he was clearly uncomfortable with how much like my eyes were just streaming. And I was like, I'm sick and I feel awful, and that was so awful.
Right. Okay, so then you got your test results online within like 12 hours?
Yeah, I got them 12 hours later. I got them around midnight.
Okay, and then what did it say?
I tested negative.
And we have since learned that that is probably a false negative.
On account of how sick I was, how similar our symptoms were, and the fact that you tested positive, yes.
Correct. And so that's been said by the health department as well as your doctor even, that it's likely that you have it and that you need to follow the precautions.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So my question is, because I got tested, hated it. Did they make you blow your nose before you took the test?
They did not.
Okay. So my doctor said that there was a 15, you're fine, 15, so 15 to 40% chance of a false negative. And that part of the problem is that when they do the swab, if there's like a lot of congestion or anything in there, they're not actually getting to where the virus lives. They're just getting snot, basically. So if you were congested and you didn't blow your nose, like you were set up for a false negative. Again, it's still early. I don't know
Right, I don't know what they knew.
What they knew, yeah. So I didn't have any congestion, and we're going to go over symptoms in a little bit, but I didn't have any congestion at that point, and I blew she told me to blew my nose super, super, super hard before I got there. Like I was practicing all night the night before. My sinuses were probably so dry because I was just constantly trying to get out anything that could be in there. And then I get there, and then at the lab place, they're like, okay, before you do the test, you need to blow your nose really, really, really hard. And I was like, okay, got it. And so I did in the car, and then I sanitized my hands and everything. And then I get up to the drive-through part, and the doctor's like, did you blow your nose? And I was like, yes.
How many days after I got tested did you get tested?
I got tested on the 27th, so it would have been
4 days?
Technically 5 days, I guess, because 23rd, 24th, 25th, 25th, yeah. I mean, it's 4 days after, but it's the 5th day after. Does that make sense? I got it on Friday, you got it on Monday.
They didn't say anything about blowing my nose, and I was so snotty.
You're always snotty.
So snotty. Snotty.
Yeah, so I don't know if they didn't know or what, but my doctor knew. And I talked to her on the 26th, and so that's what she had told me. And so I knowing all of that information now, I think that's how you got to what we believe to be a false negative.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So I got tested up in Bellingham. You were tested what in Shoreline?
Ballard.
Ballard. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if it's because of the different areas, the different system, or just the different days of why there's different information on what needs to be done or how to do it. So I do have a question. Was there any reluctance or question about you getting tested? Because there isn't. Not everybody can get tested, and not everyone is getting tested.
Yeah, when I was originally talking to the doctor from California, he was saying just stay home. You're sick. Just assume we're at this point. We're assuming everybody has it. So just assume you have it and just stay home. And I was like, cool. Yeah, already super staying home. However, I was working on clients, and I need to let them know if I have it or not. I can't just be like, I have a flu. You might have it. I need to know to alert my office if I have it or not. And so he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I think you should get tested.
Okay.
The thing is because I can't, that's the thing I was talking to Alex about is, I don't have, we believe, but I still got a false negative. So I could be like, hey, I got tested for coronavirus. It was negative. Probably a false negative, it sounds like. You should be aware and be tested. And okay, what if you just had the flu? I didn't get flu tested. You probably just had the flu. Maybe your sister licked something when she was at the grocery store, and so she got it, and you didn't actually get it. And it's similar to flu symptoms. You know what I mean?
No, I know. And that's why I'm trying to make it clear that the reason why we think you have a false negative is because I had it. And I'll talk about my exposure to people in a minute. I had it. You and I had very similar symptoms, tracking very similar timelines. So you're maybe a couple of days ahead of me or something like that. Your doctor told you just follow the regular COVID. You talked to the health department. Talked to 2 health departments actually. They told you to follow just the regular, exposure protocols because it is likely that you have it.
Yes. Sorry, I'm going to adjust my body. I'm getting uncomfortable.
Anyway, because this is part of the reason why I wanted to make this, is because there is, nothing's perfect in this. And you can be somebody who has everything showing that you have it and still get negative.
Yeah.
And, like I said, even after, so for most tests, right? For most tests, so let's say, let's just use the flu test, right? So let's say, if you had a flu, or if you had flu-like symptoms and you took a flu test and it came back negative, right? They're not going to be like, I'm sure it's the flu. Right? They're going to be like, no, your test came back negative. But in this
if you want me to do additional testing, but
in this case, they're saying, yeah, your test came back negative, but it's likely that you have it. And that's it's not super common. I'm not saying I've never had a medical test where that came back negative and they were like, never mind, I still think you have it. They were like, okay, well, something else is going on, let's figure it out. And in this case, they're like, nope. Something's wrong. Just act like you had it. You probably got it. Your sister has it. So, what were your symptoms?
It started off sore throat, really hot, burning kind of sore throat.
Okay.
Not I've had strep and tonsillitis, and this is just very much just kind of raw, I guess, feeling, I would say.
Okay.
I had a really bad headache.
Okay.
I had a dry cough.
Okay.
It wasn't even that long ago, but it feels like forever ago. So I'm trying to remember. I had stomach issues. My stomach was uncomfortable all the time.
Okay. Did you have a fever?
Yeah. It was a low-grade fever. It was only got to 99 or something.
Okay.
But I took it orally, and doctors all say that that's one of the most ineffective ways to take your temperature. So it could have been higher.
Okay.
I remember being sick to my stomach. I remember being really snotty. I actually sneezed a couple times.
Did you have chest pain?
My chest felt really tight. On Sunday, we went for a drive, and I was driving, and I was like, I feel terrible, but like, this is my last day with Evelyn before she goes back to her dad's house.
Right, and that would have been Sunday the 29th.
22nd.
Oh, you're right, 22nd. Sorry.
Yeah. And then as we're driving, I'm like, oh, my chest feels tight. Like, I am just driving, and I'm having trouble breathing. And so I was like, oh, that's when I was like, oh, Nikes, I really think that this might be coronavirus.
Did you experience difficulty breathing? Any breathlessness, anything like that?
My chest felt tight. I didn't feel like I couldn't breathe. Okay. There's a couple times where I couldn't get like a good breath. Like I was like, I remember laying down and sleeping, being like, I just can't. So maybe, yeah.
Okay. Did you have any fatigue?
Yeah. I was so tired. I've been tired, so fatigued. I was still fatigued probably till 3 days ago.
How did you quarantine at home? So when you had after you thought you had it, because there was a time period where you didn't think you had it.
Right, I just assumed I had human metapneumovirus that Evelyn and Alex had.
Right.
So I was just hanging out with them, and so then after I realized that I probably had it, I honestly was like, well, if I have it, Evelyn and Alex already have it, so I'm not gonna quarantine away from them. I mean, she just drank out of my water bottle the other day. Like, there's no way she doesn't have it too. Right. I'm physically intimate with my partner. So if I was sick, he's sick too, and I thought I had what he had, We sleep in the same bed together, we kiss, we're gonna share germs. And so after I thought I had it, I was like, ooh, you guys have it now. Let's see what happens. Or you guys had it. We're gonna see what happens in 2 weeks.
Okay. And so have either of them shown any symptoms since?
Not him. And when I started to get sick, she was like, my throat hurts again. And I was like, that's when I originally reached out to our doctor. We have the same doctor. I reached out and I was like, hey, my daughter's throat hurts again. She just was hospitalized. Should it be lasting this long? And then it didn't bother her much longer, so I could have dropped it. Okay. Did she show was she tired at all or anything like that? It's hard to say, because that was like a week after, 2 weeks after she was hospitalized. So kind of, yeah, she was tired, but it was hard to know if, is this still her healing this long from why she was hospitalized, or it's hard to track that. Real quick, do you remember when you started self-isolating? I think once the school shut down, the only thing I was really doing was going to work. Okay. So, and that was the 18th also? Okay, so your last day was the 18th, and then you stayed inside, basically, and then you guys felt kind of cooped up, so on the 22nd, the day before your test, you drove up to Glen Haven? Yeah, and we didn't leave the car. We went to Friday Creek Park and had a picnic, but we made sure we stayed away from everybody, because that's when social distancing was still, everyone's, social distance. Right, Washington didn't have its stay-at-home orders until the 23rd of March. Right. And so, after you got your negative result, did you feel like, oh, I don't have it, I'm fine? I think it was just weird. It feels like I have it. I didn't think I knew at the beginning they had false negatives, but I thought by that time they didn't anymore. I was like, oh, they have it. They figured it out by now, and that was kind of disappointing, because clearly they don't have enough tests to test me again. I already got tested. Right. But the health department did call me. Your health department told me that sometimes some doctors are double testing, because they are still getting some false negatives, so they're double testing. And she asked if they double tested me, and I said, not to my knowledge. And she said, you get results if they tested it again, you don't. So some places aren't double testing, and some places are. So I mean, they're trying to figure out antibody testing, and that's the only way I'll know for sure if I had it or not. They get that done. Yep. So if and when that does happen, definitely get that done. Oh yeah. It's one of those things where we obviously have enough information. You do have it. Did. I'm healed.
Okay, did have it, but it's still good to have it like marked off. Like, yeah, I already did that. Too cool for school. Okay. So anyway, that's the interview. Hope you enjoyed it. I had originally set it up. There was her part and then my part, and then the video is already way too long. So I decided to redo it in cutting out most of my stuff at the end and just putting this part of the video, the front and the back on it, and just trying to condense it because she and I talk a lot. A lot. Again, if you're having problems, please contact a professional. We are not professionals. Anyways, I hope if you see this, I hope that you're doing well. I'm sorry if you're not. I know that it's miserable. I wish you luck. I wish you luck if you have family members who are going through this. It's difficult not only being sick, but being so very alone and being sick. I did have friends who did check up on me, through text and stuff, but you do realize how very, very alone you are when you're sick like that. So, again, I hope you're well. I wish you well if you're not. And hopefully we'll all see better days soon. Okay.